What if working harder is the very thing keeping you from success? You don't need to work longer hours, grind yourself into exhaustion, or sacrifice your life to get ahead. The real secret? It's not about doing more. It's about doing what matters. In the next few minutes, you'll discover a simple but life-altering system that can double your productivity, slash your stress, and give you back a control of your time. Miss this, and you'll stay trapped in the cycle of overwork forever. Keep listening, because this might just be the breakthrough you've been waiting for. The sound of the alarm pierced through the dimly lit room. Mark groaned, slamming his palm against the snooze button for the third time. He barely slept. Again. The glowing numbers on his bedside clock read 6:45 a.m., 15 minutes past when he should have been up. Rushing out of bed, he grabbed the first wrinkled shirt he could find, spilled coffee on his only clean pair of pants, and cursed under his breath. Another late start. Another day of playing catch-up. By the time he reached the office, his inbox was already flooded with emails, each one screaming for immediate attention. His manager, Lisa, shot him a knowing glance as he slipped into his chair. "Rough morning?" she asked, not waiting for an answer before walking away. Mark sighed. Every morning is rough. He had been working in corporate marketing for 5 years, yet he still felt like a rookie trying to stay afloat. His to-do list was a mile long, and despite working late most nights, he never seemed to make progress. Was this just how life was supposed to be? A never-ending cycle of stress, exhaustion, and falling behind. That evening, Mark sat at his usual spot at Joe's Cafe, sipping what had to be his fourth coffee of the day. His laptop screen flickered with an unfinished presentation that was due the next morning. His mind, however, wasn't on work. It was on the deep frustration gnawing at him. As he rubbed his temples, he overheard a conversation at the next table. "I swear, ever since I started following that book's principles, I've been finishing my work in half the time," a young woman said, laughing. Her friend raised an eyebrow. "Which book?" "Work Smarter, Not Harder" by Timo Kiander. Total game changer. It's not about working more. It's about working better. Mark's ears perked up. He quickly searched for the book on his phone. The title alone resonated with him. He debated for a moment before clicking buy now. That night, as exhaustion weighed on his body, he forced himself to read just the first chapter. It's not about how much time you work. It's about how effectively you use that time. Mark sat up. That one sentence hit him harder than any piece of career advice he had ever received. The next morning, Mark woke up 5 minutes before his alarm. He had barely slept, but this time it wasn't due to stress. It was excitement. Something about the book had ignited a curiosity within him. As he sat at his kitchen table, coffee in hand, he flipped through the next few pages. "Write things down. Your brain is not meant to store tasks. It's meant to execute them." Mark glanced at his chaotic desk, littered with sticky notes, half-filled notebooks, and random scribbles on napkins. His entire work life was scattered across different platforms, apps, and notepads. No wonder he always felt overwhelmed. Determined to make a change, he grabbed an old notebook and wrote in bold letters, "Fix my broken workflow." The moment he got to work, Mark resisted the urge to jump into his inbox. Instead, he opened a fresh document and brain dumped every single thing on his mind. Projects, meetings, deadlines, even the small, annoying tasks that always slipped through the cracks. For the first time, he saw the chaos clearly. But the book had another rule: prioritize. "Not all tasks are equal," he murmured as he underlined the 3 most important ones for the day. The first task: prepare the client pitch deck. Mark pulled up the unfinished presentation. Normally, he would work on it while checking emails, scrolling LinkedIn, and responding to Slack messages all at once. But the book had warned him about the dangers of multitasking. Your brain can only focus deeply on one thing at a time. Protect that focus. With a deep breath, he closed his inbox, silenced his phone, and put on noise-canceling headphones. For the first time in months, Mark worked without distractions. An hour later, he leaned back, astonished. The presentation was done. Not just done well. He had finished in half the time it would normally take him. The book was right. Hey, sorry to interrupt. If you're enjoying this story so far, consider hitting that subscribe button. Your support truly means the world to us. All right, let's continue. Mark couldn't believe it. He had finished the presentation in record time without feeling drained. Normally, he would be drowning in notifications, switching between emails, and getting lost in a sea of distractions. But this time he had worked with pure focus. He checked his watch, 10:30 a.m. He was actually ahead of schedule. That never happened. Feeling a surge of motivation, he opened the book again. Track your deep work hours. The more aware you are of where your time goes, the more control you'll have over it. Mark pulled out a blank sheet of paper and wrote, Deep work, log day 1, 9 a.m. to 10:30 a.m., client presentation, 90 minutes, no distractions. He exhaled, realizing something profound. He had spent only 90 minutes doing what usually took half a day. It made him wonder, where had the rest of his time been going all these years? A notification flashed on his screen. Lisa. Hey, Mark, do you have a sec? Need your input on a campaign idea. His old instinct kicked in, drop everything and respond immediately. But he hesitated. The book's advice echoed in his mind. Protect your focus. Urgency is often an illusion. Instead of jumping in, he typed back. Happy to help. I'm focused on something right now. Can we chat at 11:30? Lisa responded within seconds. Of course. Thanks for letting me know. Mark blinked. Wait. That was it? No frustration. No passive-aggressive comments. Just a simple acknowledgement. He had always assumed that being available 24/7 was the key to success, but in reality, it had only led to exhaustion and scattered work. For the next hour, he tackled another high-impact task from his priority list. By the time 11:30 rolled around, he had already accomplished more in one morning than he usually did in an entire day. And for the first time in years, he didn't feel overwhelmed. By lunchtime, Mark felt something he hadn't experienced in years: clarity. His deep work sessions had been shockingly productive, and for once, he wasn't drowning in unfinished tasks. He walked to a nearby cafe for a quick break, resisting the urge to check his emails while eating. Instead, he reflected on what he had learned so far. Work expands to fill the time you give it, the book had said. Was that why he always felt like he was running out of time? Because he had never set clear boundaries for his tasks? As he took another bite of his sandwich, his phone buzzed. It was an email from Lisa. Subject, urgent. Need your input ASAP. Mark's chest tightened. Old habit screamed at him to drop everything and rush back to his desk. But he caught himself. Urgency is often an illusion. He opened the email. Lisa needed a quick revision on a report, but nothing in it was truly time-sensitive. Instead of scrambling, Mark responded calmly, Happy to make the changes. I have a focused work block from 2 p.m. to 3 p.m. We'll send the updated version after that. He hit send, half expecting backlash. Instead, Lisa replied, Sounds great. Thanks, Mark. Mark chuckled under his breath. Had it always been this simple? Back at his desk, Mark scheduled his next deep work block. He had never planned his time like this before. It was always just reacting to whatever came his way. At exactly 2 p.m., he started working on Lisa's report. No distractions, no multitasking, just focused effort. By 2:45 p.m., he was done. He looked at the clock. 45 minutes. Before, this same task would have taken twice as long because of interruptions. As he sent the updated file to Lisa, he felt a deep sense of control. For the first time, work wasn't controlling him. He was controlling his work. Mark was riding a wave of productivity, but he knew from experience that good habits were easy to break. One bad day, and he could slip right back into old patterns. And that day came sooner than expected. At 4 p.m., just as he was preparing to wrap up, his phone buzzed. "Lisa, hey, can you jump on a quick call? Just 5 minutes." Mark hesitated. He had promised himself that he would set clear boundaries. His workday would end at 5 p.m., no exceptions. But this was Lisa, his boss. Saying no felt risky. With a sigh, he typed, "Sure, let's do it." 5 minutes turned into 10, 10 turned into 30. By the time the call ended, Mark's head was spinning. Lisa had dumped 3 new urgent tasks on him, each with tight deadlines. He looked at the clock, 4:45 p.m. He had 2 choices. 1, stay late, get everything done, and slip back into his old cycle of overworking. 2, stick to the system, prioritize, and tackle things smarter, not harder. Mark took a deep breath. He flipped open his notebook and wrote down the 3 new tasks. Then, he ranked them. Only one was actually urgent. The other 2 could wait. He completed the high-priority task before 5 p.m., sent Lisa a quick update, and shut down his computer. As he walked out of the office, something incredible happened. He didn't feel guilty. For the first time, he realized that his time was his to control. That evening, instead of drowning in unfinished work, Mark actually enjoyed his free time. He went for a run, cooked dinner, and even started reading another chapter of the book. One line stood out. Know when you are working and when you are not. He had spent years letting work invade his personal life, answering emails late at night, stressing over unfinished tasks. But now, for the first time, he had drawn a line, and nothing had fallen apart. As he went to bed that night, a thought crossed his mind. Maybe success isn't about doing more. Maybe it's about doing what matters. With that, he closed his eyes, without stress, without guilt, and for the first time in years, without exhaustion. The next morning, Mark woke up before his alarm again, but this time it wasn't stress that pulled him from sleep. It was anticipation. As he sipped his coffee, he glanced at his notebook where he had outlined his top 3 priorities for the day. Instead of feeling overwhelmed, he felt in control. At work, he followed his new routine. Deep work block from 9 a.m. 10:30 a.m., focused meeting prep from 11 a.m. 11:30 a.m., quick email check before lunch. He wasn't rushing. He wasn't drowning in distractions. And yet, he was getting more done than ever before. By noon, Lisa stopped by his desk. "You've been on fire this week," she said. "I don't know what you're doing differently, but it's working." Mark grinned. "Just trying something new." "Whatever it is, keep it up. I might have to steal some of your tricks," she joked before walking off. Mark leaned back in his chair, feeling something he hadn't in a long time. Pride. That evening, instead of collapsing onto the couch in exhaustion, Mark did something different. He made time for himself. He met up with an old friend for dinner, something he had been too busy for in the past. "Dude, you look different," his friend Jason said between bites of pasta. "Like, not stressed out of your mind for once." Mark laughed. "That's because for the first time in years, I'm actually running my workday instead of letting it run me." Jason raised an eyebrow. "How?" Mark thought for a moment, then smiled. "I stopped trying to work harder. I started working smarter." For the first time, he realized that this wasn't just a work experiment anymore. It was a lifestyle change. And he was never going back. Mark's transformation wasn't just affecting his work, it was changing everything. By the end of the week, his anxiety had decreased, his focus had sharpened, and he was leaving work on time every day. One afternoon, as he packed up at exactly 5 p.m., his coworker Dave smirked. "Cutting out early again, huh?" Dave teased. "Wish I had that luxury." Mark paused, then grinned. "You do, man. I'm not working less. I'm just working better." Dave rolled his eyes. "Sounds nice." but that's not how things work around here. If you're not grinding, you're falling behind. Mark used to believe that too, but now he just shook his head. I used to think that. Then I realized I was just spinning my wheels. You ever feel like you're working nonstop but still not getting anywhere? Dave sighed. Every damn day. Mark tapped his notebook. Try this. Start tomorrow with one focused task. No emails, no Slack, no distractions. Just one thing that moves the needle. See what happens. Dave chuckled. All right, productivity guru, I'll give it a shot. Mark laughed, slinging his bag over his shoulder. See you Monday. As he walked out, he realized something incredible. He wasn't just improving his own life. He was inspiring change in others. That weekend, Mark did something he hadn't done in years. He actually relaxed. No unfinished work hanging over his head, no guilt about not doing enough. Just time for himself, his friends, and the things he had neglected for too long. Sunday night, as he prepped for the week ahead, he flipped to the last chapter of the book. Success isn't about doing more. It's about doing what matters. Work should serve your life, not consume it. Mark closed the book and smiled. For the first time in his career, he truly understood what working smarter meant. And he was never going back. Monday morning, Mark walked into the office feeling different. No stress, no dread, just quiet confidence. As he set up for his first deep work session, he noticed Dave at his desk. No scrolling, no Slack notifications, just focused work. Mark smirked. Guess he actually tried it. An hour later, Dave rolled his chair back with a look of shock. Dude, I had just finished an entire proposal in one go. No distractions. I don't think I've ever done that before. Mark laughed. Told you. Dave shook his head. It's like, I've been making work harder than it needed to be this whole time. Mark nodded. Most people do. But once you see what focused work can do, you can't unsee it. Lisa, their manager, walked by and overheard. I don't know what you guys are doing, but I like it. We might need to have a meeting about this. Mark exchanged a look with Dave and grinned. It wasn't just a personal change anymore. This was becoming a movement. By the end of the day, Mark was wrapping up his work when an email popped up. Subject: New leadership role, let's discuss. His heart pounded. He opened the email from Lisa. Mark, I've been watching your progress and I'm impressed. Your productivity has skyrocketed, and now Dave's performance is improving too. I want to discuss a possible leadership role for you. Let's chat tomorrow. Mark stared at the screen, stunned. For years, he had worked late, taken on extra tasks, and burned himself out trying to prove himself. None of it had led to this. But the moment he worked smarter, not harder, everything changed. He leaned back, a slow smile spreading across his face. This was only the beginning. Mark barely slept that night, but this time it wasn't from stress. It was excitement. A leadership role. Just a month ago, he had felt stuck, drowning in work, constantly overwhelmed, convinced he wasn't progressing. Now, his entire career was shifting, and all because he had changed how he worked, not how much. The next morning, Lisa called him into her office. I'll get straight to the point, she said, folding her hands on the desk. I need someone to help the team improve their efficiency. We have talent, but we're wasting time on the wrong things. And from what I've seen, you figured out how to fix that. Mark nodded, heart pounding. I want you to lead a productivity workshop for the team next week, Lisa continued. If it goes well, we'll talk about expanding your role. Mark exhaled. A few weeks ago, he might have panicked at the thought of leading a workshop, but now he was ready. I'd love to, he said, smiling. Lisa grinned. That's what I was hoping to hear. That weekend, Mark spent time preparing for his first ever team training. He outlined the core principles that had transformed his work. Prioritize deep work over busy work. Set clear boundaries to protect focus. Plan your day before it controls you. By Monday morning, he had built a simple step-by-step system to help his coworkers break free from their own cycle of stress. And for the first time, he wasn't just changing his own life, he was helping others do the same. The day of the workshop arrived. Mark stood at the front of the conference room looking at his coworkers, some skeptical, some curious. Just a month ago, he had been one of them, stressed, overworked, and constantly behind. Now, he was about to share the system that had changed everything. He took a deep breath. This wasn't about proving himself. It was about helping others. "All right, let's be honest," he said, leaning against the desk. "How many of you feel like you're working nonstop but never actually getting ahead?" A few chuckles, some knowing nods. "That was me a few weeks ago," Mark continued. "I was constantly exhausted, working late and still falling behind. Then I realized the problem. I wasn't working smart. I was just working a lot." That got their attention. For the next hour, Mark walked them through the principles he had learned: deep work, time blocking, prioritization, and setting boundaries. He gave real-life examples of how it had changed his work and even his life. By the end, the skepticism was gone. People were engaged, excited, and even taking notes. Dave clapped him on the back as they wrapped up. "Man, that was actually useful," he admitted. "I'm going to try that deep work thing tomorrow." Lisa approached with a smile. "That was exactly what we needed. I think we should make this a regular thing." Mark grinned. "I'd love to." As Mark walked out of the office that evening, he felt different. He wasn't just an employee anymore. He was a leader. Not because he worked the hardest, not because he pulled the longest hours, but because he had learned how to make every hour count. As he got home, he flipped open his notebook and wrote one final note. Success isn't about doing more. It's about doing what matters. Mark had finally figured it out, and his life would never be the same. Mark's story isn't just fiction. It's a reflection of reality for so many of us. Working harder isn't the answer. Working smarter is. If you are constantly overwhelmed, drowning in tasks, and feeling like you're getting nowhere, it's time to change the way you work. Prioritize deep work. Focus on what truly moves the needle. Set boundaries. Your time is valuable. Protect it. Plan your day before it controls you. Success isn't about being busy. It's about being effective. Take action today. Apply these lessons, and you'll be amazed at how much more you can achieve without burning out. Because in the end, success isn't about doing more. It's about doing what matters. Now, it's your turn. Will you keep running in circles, or will you take control of your time and your future? The choice is yours.